everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Definitely Talking podcast. I'm Shanna Groves, also known as Lip Reading Mom. Today, I am welcoming again a returning guest to our podcast, and that is Dr. Ann McIntosh. As we've shared in previous episodes, Ann is the president and CEO of a company called Safe and Clear, which provides communication access for people in the medical field. She also has a PhD in communication sciences and disorders. She's the author of 3 books, and she's just a communication expert in general. But our focus today we'll be talking about is how to create communication-friendly homes and environments for ourselves, for those of us who live with deafness and hearing loss. And as a side note, as explained in previous interviews with Anne, she does live with a hearing loss and uses hearing technology to be able to hear just like I do. So welcome, Anne, again.
Thank you. It's good to be back again today. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, professionally, you are known as the founder, the CEO, president of a company called Safe and Clear. And I know that that was probably inspired by some of your real life experience with communication accessibility in the community settings and medical situations. But I'm curious, Anne, you've shared before that your hearing loss was diagnosed several years ago and that you had a situation to where I believe you were in delivering one of your children and you were in a hospital setting and being able to understand what the medical staff was saying to you while you were trying to deliver your child was very challenging. And I can so relate with you because our lives are filled with so much noise and distractions and sometimes chaos that those of us who need a more quiet and more intentional listening background, we sometimes have to work even harder to be able to communicate with everyone, to be able to understand what we're hearing, to lip read. And I'm curious, Anne, what has made you so passionate about your mission to design communication-friendly homes and community situations?
So it's really twofold. It's professional and personal. Professionally, my background, I have degrees in communication. And so part of that is problem solving, conflict resolution. When things come up, how do you resolve conflict? And one of the ways that we go in and resolve conflict is we analyze what happened to lead up to that, and then retrospectively go back and reflect and see where that breakdown started to see if we can do repairs to get the communication back up and get it running. So when you have communication misunderstanding. So in the hospital, when I was not able to communicate, that was where those breakdowns happened. But I knew that I had not changed, but that it was the environment around me that had changed. So my professional hat came on and said, how do we fix this? And my personal hat was, I'm living through this and this isn't a good feeling. And I knew that other people were sharing that moment with me when they went to the dentist or when they went to the doctor and so on and so forth. But the idea of the communication friendly home is, as you just stated, we work so hard to lip read, to see what's going on. So our workplace can be a little bit, maybe not hostile, but it's not communication friendly. It's set up for whatever that workspace is. And if we go to church, that's not a deaf church or something like that, we're struggling there. You're struggling at the grocery store. You might be struggling at the post office and the shopping mall. So all these places. So when you come home, your home, right? And that should be your sanctuary. And that should be where, you can let your hair down and be able to communicate effortlessly and seamlessly. So when my husband and I decided to build our home, we custom built our home, but I knew that there were certain things that I wanted to have in the home. And we went and looked at lots and lots of houses. So I got to see things that I liked, and I got to see things and said, uh-oh, this isn't good for somebody who has a hearing loss. So, just to kind of walk you through that process, beginning at our house, we have a gate across the driveway. Now, depending on where people live and what the homeowners association covenants might say, a gate may or may not be possible for other people. But we have a gate, and the reason being is so that no one pulls all the way up into the driveway without my knowledge. So that somebody's just not like right on top of me and at my door, if you will. So that is a security measure so that I can feel safe in my own home. But it's there to for that purpose. And then in addition to that, when you come down the sidewalk and come up to the front door, we have a glass door in front of the main front door. So I
Mhm.
can open my front door and I have that glass door still there that's locked. So I can open up the door and let sunshine in, or I can open up the door if I'm waiting on someone to come in. So it gives me more visual. I can see more of what's going on when the front door is not closed. I really like having that door open. It brings in sunshine and so on and so forth. But I'm safe because the glass door has three locks on it. So I'm able to lock that door um, and have that. So when you come in, and that's one thing. Into my office and into the bedroom that we use as a nursery, we have French glass doors. So the French doors are there so that the glass we can see in without having to open the door. So if you have a sleeping baby, you don't want to open the door and wake up a sleeping baby. So we had that glass door there so that I can see in. It will stop noise, but it doesn't stop the visual what's going on. Now, as the children grew from babies and became children and older children, they wanted their privacy. My husband simply put a roller shade on it or a set
Mhm.
of blinds on it. So you can still use the French door and have privacy if that is needed. So that is something that we have in the
Mhm.
house. I have windows along the way so that I can watch and see what's happening outside. If the mail carrier comes up, if the FedEx or UPS delivery people
Mhm.
come up, I'm able to visually see that. So I'm very aware of what's going on around me, even if I'm not hearing the trucks come in and out or hear them get in and out. So that is nice that I'm tuned in to what's
Mhm.
happening around the house.
Mhm.
Now, to come in, I also have mirrors in our house so that I can catch reflections, or if something's happening somewhere else, I can catch that visually. I will see
Yeah.
movement, so then I can look and see what that movement is. If somebody had come in for the day from school or from work, so the mirrors are helpful as well with that. Back in the day, we had phone flashers, and I had those installed in our home, but now everyone keeps an iPhone with them. So we don't have a landline phone in our home anymore. But I know that some people, maybe that are listening to the podcast, do still have some landline. So I want to remind them that, you can have phone flashers. So we actually had electrical outlets installed up high where the phone flashers were so that we wouldn't have a cord coming down. The cord with animals and with babies is a safety issue. So
Right.
we wanted to make sure that we put the receptacles where we needed them for things that were up high. Um,
Mhm.
Part of a communication friendly home is to always have captions on the TV. So actually the remote that we have has a CC on it so that we can do that instead of going to settings and going to
Mhm.
language and flipping through. So sometimes that can be a bit tedious. You almost need a technology person. But we have a closed caption on the remote itself, so that makes it easy just to hit a
Right.
button.
Yes, and I know what you mean about technology. It continues to evolve. Probably when you and your husband first designed your home, you had no idea what the capabilities would be today. So we do evolve into our listening environments and what technology is out there at the time, as well as how our needs change. And I know from my perspective, cameras having security cameras on the outside of the house. I get an alert on my smartphone So throughout the workday, if someone comes to the front door, I will have an alert of them pulling up in the driveway first, and then once they come to the door. So I have other alerts to my two little dogs will bark like mad. But also, when I walk down the stairs and our front door, it does also have a glass door and then it has a solid door. But on either side of that solid door are two long windows that are tinted. So the person standing on the porch cannot see in my house, but I can see them. So that also cues me in if I'm not familiar with who's standing on my porch, I can get a better look at them and decide whether or not I want to open the door. But
Exactly.
usually, right. But I know what you mean about the inside of your house too. Did you, so this seems like it was several years ago when you started thinking through the communication friendly home. How have you been able to apply that principle in other settings? For example, in the car, either you're a passenger or you're driving and someone wants to have a conversation with you. What are some communication friendly strategies that you put in place in order to be able to understand the communication going on around you in a moving vehicle?
So, you mentioned something about a porch, so I want to go to that. But to answer the question about the moving vehicle, um, one of the questions that comes up is, depending on who I'm with in the car, if there's other people, is am I the driver or not? So for certain people, if they're difficult for me to understand, then probably they're going to be the driver and I'll be the passenger, so that I can give them eye contact and look at them. If there's multiple people in the car, I might be sitting in the back seat. They might pull down the visor and there might be a mirror there and I can lip read off the mirror and see
Mhm.
them. We might do that. I might have Ada or Ava on my phone and I might be just reading a transcript of the conversation that's going on in the car. So usually we're not driving to and from for long distances, so it's not, no, if we're going to do a big road trip or something, I do more. But if it's just 10 or 15 minutes because we're running errands or something like that, not
Mhm.
really that much of a deal because I will have those conversations not necessarily in the car because my husband enjoys listening to his music, and so we might be trying to struggle over the music. But back to your door, you talked about the sidelight, the beside your door, and we have those as well, and that's helpful. But I purposefully did not build a large front porch on the house. It's just an entrance way in so that nobody can get off to the side to where I can't see them. So when I talk about communication friendliness, I'm also incorporating into that safety. And I had experience years ago working a lot with the police department. So I listened to the police officers, especially crime prevention officers, and I asked them, well, how to set up things around my house. For example, we do not have shrubbery right up against the house. Animals can be in there that I might not hear, like a rabid skunk or a raccoon or something like that, or a person could be hiding in there. So now when I drive up, I have a clean sweep of the house. I can see all around the house and see that there's no one up against the house. So I do a lot of the safety built in with that communication friendliness so that I am able to understand what's going on. And I
Mm.
say able to understand what's going on. If my husband was in here listening to this podcast, he would say, meaning she wants to be in control. It's not that I want necessarily to be in control, but I do want to understand what's going on around that.
Absolutely. Yes, I understand.
Now,
Yes, I
seeing how we
understand about those extra noises that are, a part of life when you share a home with someone else. And then real quickly, and you mentioned something about podcast, music, TV, and all of that. Do you have any preferences like for the communication friendly environment on, volume control, or is volume really not so much an issue because all background noise can distort? But do you have any strategies for people who have a lot of noises in their home?
We don't have a lot of noises in our home because I insert iPods, and people will put in the AirPods and things like that. So when my son was on the computer playing his video games or if he's listening to music, it is in his ear. So it's not surround sound, it's not
Hmm.
stereo sound. Now my husband will have his out. And also
Hmm.
when I'm on my phone, I'm not bothering other people because I have Bluetooth. So it's running through, so it's in my ear. So the atmosphere noise is very, very low. It really is. We don't watch a lot of television in the house. We do have surround sound there. We have some speakers set up, but that's rare that that happens. We might have a TV night or something like that. And if we have a TV night, then we're all watching movie. We're watching the movie that's on the television. So we're not really trying to have a conversation and talking at the
Hmm.
same time with that's happening.
Hmm.
Now back to the car where we seated, we do that same principle is at play in the dining room. How do we set the people up? So we have a dining room table that had leaves in it. So if we have more guests coming, we add the leaves and it extends the table. And what I normally do is I put the person that I cannot hear or is the most difficult to hear in my best ear or line of sight, and I put the person that I can hear very easily in my worst ear
Hmm.
because I can hear them better. So we do have assigned seating, if you will. I'll say, you're sitting here and so and so sitting there, and kind of set that up so that we can see what's going on at the table and how we manage that.
Hmm.
I want to talk about the kitchen a little bit. In the kitchen, oftentimes a person's kitchen sink will be at the window. And so you're looking out the window, and so your back is to the family den room or the dining room or whatever. So in our home, the sink is not at the window. We have a window in the kitchen, but the sink is in an island.
Okay.
And it's in the middle of the island. It's kind of like a U. And on the left of the sink is a cooktop, and I use a ceramic cooktop instead of a gas stove because gas stove, if it bubbles over and I don't hear it, and it makes a mess. So with the cooktop, I can just wipe that off. I also have clear lids on
Hmm.
our pots and pans so that I can see the water boiling. I can see if something's getting ready to spill over as opposed to a non-transparent lid,
Wow.
and then just clean the mess up. And then to the right of the sink is the dishwasher. So I'm actually able to interface with people in the dining room, getting things ready for the meal or clean up after the meal. I'm still a part of it. I can listen to what they're saying. I can participate in that. It's also set up to where for the family room, I can see what's happening in the family room as well. So that is one thing that we did is we pulled the sink out from the kitchen window. So if people are looking to upgrade their home, do a kitchen
Hmm.
renovation, or if they're looking at new homes or apartments or townhomes, that would be something that I would really say look into that because that is a game changer and your
Mm.
ability to be able to communicate. And what are we doing when we have people over? We invite people over for meals, for holiday meals, for Thanksgiving meals, for Christmas meals, for birthday parties. So the gathering of family and friends is going to usually hover
Yeah.
around a meal. So my ability
Hmm.
to meal prep and to clean up, I need to be a part of that. So the sink away from the window is really huge for that. The clear pots and pans is another real game changer because you're
Hmm.
not hearing to do that. We all get distracted. The phone rings or something happens, and so, not being able to come back, and you've got this huge mess, and then you have to keep the pot in the sink for 3 days, and you're scrubbing it and trying to get it all clean. So you avoid all of that altogether. Um, and then as we move upstairs where we have our bedrooms, as I mentioned before, we have the glass French doors on the nursery. Um, but then we have I have open shelving, and I do that because behind the closed door, things can get behind closed doors. One day I was working here and I didn't know it, but I had locked the cat up in the powder bathroom. cat was in there meowing all day. I didn't hear it. And so those things. So I kind of leave things open so that I don't make a mistake and close a kitty cat up in a drawer or in a closet or something and they can't get out. And when
Mm,
you're totally deaf and you
right.
don't hear the meow, that is something that can happen.
It
And
really,
so
truly, yes, I can attest to that. As I mentioned before, I have two small dogs and they like to follow me everywhere, including into the pantry when I'm getting food out or I'm cooking, making a meal. And sometimes they don't leave. When I shut the door, I don't realize because they're so small and they're quiet too. It's funny because anytime the door the doorbell rings or someone knocks, they just bark, 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 bark. But if you leave them in a room or leave them behind, they might do a little bit of a cry or a whimper. But with our hearing loss, we can't always hear that high frequency sound of our animals. And so you mentioned about a meowing cat. And that's a safety issue also, I will say, for any of our podcast viewers who have small children if they can sometimes get left behind and, you know, whether they're pre-verbal or they are verbal, but children have such high frequency sounding voices that most of our hearing loss, including those of like myself who have the sensory neural hearing loss, have pretty much become deaf to those high frequency sounds. And our children's voices have a lot of that sound. So I'm wondering too if, to kind of put together maybe a strategy. If you have someone over at your house, maybe a small child, and you're not used to having a small child at your home, or maybe you are, and you're just having difficulty hearing them when they need something or making sure that they're safe. Do you have any suggestions to be able to hear or visually, have some strategies to communicate with that child in the house?
for me, you never let them out of your sight. You're always eyes on them, right? I mean, you cannot turn your eyes away at a moment. I'm a mom of two, and I mean, every time you try to turn your eyes away from it, it comes back and it bites you.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the things that I do when I'm around small children is I will sign, because that makes it fun, and that's like a
Mm,
game. So we'll say, "Are you ready to eat?" So it doesn't have to be full, ASL sign language, but I will do things like that. And they will usually kind of mirror that back and they'll nod their head yes or something like that. I keep it basic and like yes and no, kind of like binary, so that in between, do you want the red one or do you want the blue one? So that I can understand kind of what's going on. And we usually will have a plan. If I have a small child, they're here for a purpose or for a reason, and so we can work around that. So we're going to color, or we're going to read, or we're going to watch a movie, or we're going to go outside. We're going to walk the dog. We're going to wash the dog. We're going to. So I will make sure that it's very structured, so that I'm familiar with the vocabulary, and so are they. And you can do all that and keep it fun
mhm.
and keep it light. You can
Right.
do those things.
That's
One
good.
other,
No, I
what,
I was just wanted to interject there that you know those who can see my video will see that there is a photo of three children in the background. Of course, I'm a mom as well, and I have two sons and a daughter. They were very young in this photo, so I have so much experience with being in a house with lots of child noise, which for the most part can be wonderful. Sometimes it can be challenging, but as they have become older and they've gotten used to living with a mom who has profound hearing loss, they have developed their own strategies in our home for their best communication practices. If I'm going to kind of wrap up this call and put you on the spot and ask you a question that we hadn't really talked about before. But if you could identify three things that would be the top priorities for a person who wants to go into their home and make some changes to make it more communication friendly? What would those three things be?
First, safety. Make sure that you have any cameras. You mentioned that you get the alerts on your phone. We have that as well. We have cameras around the home. So I would say the cameras are helpful. Second, make sure, and we didn't talk about this, but make sure that you have hardwired in strobe fire detection. So for carbon
Mm,
monoxide and for smoke detectors in your home, change them out every 10 years, but have those connected into the system. So we have a flashing strobe smoke detector in the master bedroom,
yep.
and we also have one downstairs. So we're
Mhm.
and they're all connected. So when one goes off, they all go off. So it's not going to tell me the source of where it is, but at least I will be alerted that I have smoke or that I have fire. So I think that's critically important that you would have there.
Mhm.
Secondly, use your iPhone or your other cell phone for detection for one of the ways strategies that my children use when they were in the house with me, if I'm in the office working or somewhere else, is they would text me. They would text, no, Mom, I'm in the kitchen. I can't find da 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 da. Instead of yelling out, because I'm not going to be able to hear what they're saying. I mean, I'll hear them yelling, but I'm not going to understand what they're asking me. So I would say utilize your phone. It can be a great tool to help you inside. And the other piece of that is we are very open. I don't have a lot of closed doors, hard surfaces. So you want to do a mixture between fabric and carpets and
Yes.
hard surfaces so that you
Oh,
can do that sound absorption and not get that reverberation.
abs
And how you set your furniture up. So I would just set up in round so that I can, no matter where you're sitting in the family room, I can see you. So if
got
we're
it.
talking wherever you are, I can see you and we can converse. So that's really very, very important there as well.
All right. No, and I can attest to that because we recently replaced the flooring in our downstairs in my home. It used to be wall-to-wall carpet in our living room and in our dining room, and then we have a front TV room. And now all of that is hardwood, just like the kitchen is. And we had a high school graduation party for my youngest son. He just graduated high school, and all of these guests were standing around or sitting in the kitchen, living room area, talking at the same time. And I found myself overwhelmed with just the reverberation of noise that was projected off of those hard floor surfaces. So, maybe throw in some rugs, some things if you have a lot of hardwood, anything soft, pillows, like you said, furniture can really help soft furniture, kind of focus on fabrics and things like that. But I really, truly am excited that, we got to talk earlier in our podcast season, and I'm so grateful that you've made the time to share with me again today. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you so much for having me. And I hope that your podcasters will provide some feedback if they have any tips that they have used and found to be very helpful, or even if they found something that has been awful and want to share that so that none of us will make that same mistake. So, not just what worked, but if there's something that definitely does not work, maybe share some of that as well.
That's
I've
good.
enjoyed being here
Yes.
today.
So, anyone listening or watching, we do have comments feature on YouTube or Spotify. And if you also are accessing this video from my website, libertymom.com, all of those different platforms have comment features. So, please share your ideas for best practices with communication that you found to be helpful inside your home or some things not to do and to avoid. We really appreciate that. So thank you, Anne, and thank you all for tuning into this episode of the Definitely Talking podcast. I also want to thank you all for joining us for season 2. This will be the last episode for season 2. And thank you all for being along on this journey with us. We will be back with a new season in a few months. Everyone, take care.